Okay, we can officially begin. Good Monday afternoon. Hope your week is going well so far. Actually, interestingly, we're not going to do a Rashi from the second Aliyah of Parshas Ekev because there is, although it's not such a short Aliyah, there's only one Rashi on the entire Aliyah, and it's only 5 words. And there wasn't much to make of those 5 words, as they're fairly simple. Although you should look at it on your own. But we're going to go backwards since the first Aliyah is quite long. Many important Rashis over there. Parshas Ekev, Moshe begins really his final part of his final speech to the Jewish people, is his exhortation to the Jewish people to keep the mitzvahs of the Torah once they come into the land. That's the main theme of Sefer Dvarim as a whole, but certainly one of the themes that picks up very heavily in Parshas Ekev and Re'eh. And so in the first aliyah of the parsha, Moshe goes into that. And the way he begins is, Kol ha-mitzvah asher anochi metzavcha hayom tishmeru la'asos. Very simple words, but a beautiful opening. Then he goes into much detail about what we should keep and how we should keep it and why we should keep it and what we should be afraid of and what we should be careful of when we come into the land to make sure that we keep it. But the basic premise is, Kol ha-mitzvah asher anochi metzavcha hayom tishmeru la'asos. All of the mitzvahs which I command you today are the ones that you're supposed to guard yourselves in order to keep. And Rashi says, Kipshuto. Rashi's very first comment is, the pshat of the pasuk is the pshat of the pasuk, just as it appears. I think that says a lot in and of itself. You might make a lot of these words, Kol ha-mitzvah. What's Kol ha-mitzvah? There's lots of drashas to come. But the basic premise is Kipshuto. There is nothing more powerful than the simple reading of this pasuk. All of the mitzvahs are your responsibility, Jewish people. Don't read too much into it. Don't start rationalizing, figuring this applies to me, this doesn't apply to me, this I could keep, this I can't keep. No, point blank, Kol ha-mitzvah. All the mitzvahs, they're yours to keep and yours to benefit from, and they're your responsibility. But then Rashi does go on to the drash of the pasuk, which I think is also very interesting. He says, Umedrash Agada, he quotes from the Medrash Tanhuma, or paraphrases, saying, what we learn from Kol ha-mitzvah, right? Moshe doesn't just say, ha-mitzvos tishmeru la'asos. He says, Kol ha-mitzvah, all the mitzvah, which is a strange thing. He should have said, Kol ha-mitzvos, all the mitzvos in plural. What's Kol ha-mitzvah in singular? All of the singular mitzvah. So he says, aside from the pshat, which means that we should keep the mitzvos, the medrash is, the drasha is, hitchalta b'mitzvah gemorosa. The lesson of this pasuk is, if you started a mitzvah, it's very important to finish it. We could start a lot of things. We have a lot of excitement when we begin a process. There's a lot of novelty to it, and we're very passionate when we begin a project. But the difficulty is sometimes finishing it, is following it through until its conclusion. And so Moshe is saying to us here, you might have the best of intentions, but don't forget to finish the mitzvahs that you start. And in fact, it's not only an exhortation to us to try to maintain our passion and our alacrity and finish the things that we started, but as Rashi continues to say, She'ena nikres ha-mitzvah ela al shem ha-gomra. The conclusion of the mitzvah is what allows a person to say that they benefited, that they achieved the mitzvah itself. And the proof text is actually from the burial of Yosef. So Rashi quotes, or the Medrash quotes, a pasuk from Sefer Yoshua, which says, Es atzmos Yosef asher he'elu b'nei Yisrael mitzrayim kavru b'Shechem. The bones of Yosef that Bnei Yisrael took out of Egypt, they buried in Shechem. So the Medrash says, wait a second. Bnei Yisrael didn't take out those bones. Moshe alone took out those bones, and he carried them all the way through the desert. We have other midrashim to that effect, other psukim to that effect. Moshe took total responsibility for the carrying of Yosef's bones. And now, of course, he doesn't come into the land with them. Bnei Yisrael bury those bones in Shechem. And now the pasuk attributes the taking out of the bones from Mitzrayim to Bnei Yisrael, but it's not true. It was Moshe that did it, not Bnei Yisrael. So the Medrash concludes from that, Halo Moshe levadon isasik behem la'alosam. Only Moshe took them out of Egypt. So why does the pasuk say Bnei Yisrael did it? El lafi shelo hispik legomra ugmaru ha'Yisrael nikres al shema. Because Moshe didn't have the schus, or the ability to finish the mitzvah, and they finished it for him, the whole mitzvah is called on their name. It's attributed to them as if they took the bones out themselves. Very powerful concept that when many people are involved in something, I think in the human world we feel this as well. Sometimes the last person to take part in the project may not have had the greatest role, but the world looks at them and sees it as if they finished it, as if they did the whole thing, right? Sometimes the final blow of something, bringing it to its fruition, is what gives a person notoriety. So in the spiritual realm, the same is true, saying this medrash, that we have to be very involved in the entirety of the mitzvah from beginning to end. In fact, the end is really what seals the deal, and it's what attributes the completion of the mitzvah to that particular person. And so I think we should all be very sobered by this Rashi. It's a scary thing. You can be very, very involved in something. Unless you finish it, it's not really called on your name. We do have other Rashis, other Midrashim, other Mamrei Chazal that seem to indicate the opposite, that machshava tova nechshav kemasa, or mitzaref lemasa, that good thoughts itself, even if you don't complete the action, are considered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu as an action itself. So definitely HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes our thoughts at the beginnings of our actions, our struggles, our toils, to be very, very important and of tremendous merit. But in terms of the actual check mark, so to speak, of the mitzvah being finished, being completed, being achieved, that can only happen when we're involved from beginning all the way to the very end. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Hashem. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Take care.